Yadav is a sought-after leader in the field of medical innovation and enterprise, with a focus on the development of new treatments for disease. 3 of his medical devices are FDA approved, and several others are pending approval. His entrepreneurial vision employs biotechnology to help people live longer, more comfortable lives, as you'll see in today's Executive Profile.
What got you into medicine in the first place? What were the building blocks for your career?
You know, I think to a degree it was accidental, although I do come from a family with a lot of doctors. So my grandfather's a doctor, my uncles were doctors, and I was pretty sick as a child. I'd almost died a couple of times in India from infectious diseases, typhoid twice. But I really wasn't interested in medicine until college. I think somewhere in there I read, a variety of books, including Gandhi's autobiography, which really left an impression on me, and I felt like that science by itself perhaps was not the right calling for me, that it had to be applied to some social service, and medicine seemed like a natural application of that.
Where did you do medical school?
I went to West Virginia. My father was a professor there.
How did you come to your specialty?
I actually started out wanting to cure cancer, so that was my interest, and so I started out with that thought when I went to Duke for my residency. And while I was there, we had some required rotations in other topics. So we did a cardiology rotation 1 month and a neurology rotation the next month. And cardiology at that time was undergoing a revolution with the Andreas Grunzig in Atlanta actually starting angioplasty for people having heart attacks. And then the next month I was in a neurology rotation where we had some stroke patients that were essentially not being treated. And it seemed to me that didn't make any sense because a stroke and a heart attack are very similar diseases. So I ended up going into cardiology actually, and then working on cerebrovascular disease. So quite a divergent combination of things.
You went from the actual practice of medicine to the move into being an entrepreneur as a medical technologist of sorts, an inventor of sorts.
So that really was an outgrowth of my development of stroke treatment, because I developed some new techniques to fix the arteries going to the brain, the carotid artery.
Right.
And because there were new techniques, some of the equipment did not exist. Specifically, some of the devices did not exist. And I tried to get the companies to make those devices, but I was fairly young then and still a fellow, and they said, nah, we don't think so, we're not going to make these. So I had to actually start companies really to make those devices. I hadn't even filed a patent at that time. So I started my first company, AngioGuard, just to make the devices that I thought were needed to improve the care of patients. And AngioGuard did fairly well, and other companies were interested in it, large companies like Johnson & Johnson, which eventually bought it. So that's really how I got started in the entrepreneurship business. I kept working in cerebrovascular disease, and the next company was a friend of mine, Arani Bose, and that was an intracranial device, Smart Therapeutics. And then somewhere along the way, I got interested in heart failure. Through just, again, taking care of patients, and that led to CardioMEMS, which is in Atlanta. All of our companies have done new things. They really are not sort of repetitive, generic products or companies. They're the first of their kind.
How did you suddenly, with your current company, MiRus, you've suddenly found yourself in the world of orthopedic surgery?
We've been working on some things on the cardiovascular side, on the material side, and some of the information technology that were pretty interesting. And talking to my friends who are in orthopedics and spine, they said, Jay, this is really cool stuff. We could use some of this over here too. And that sort of led to it, and I explored it further, and seemed like there really was a need for some of that technology in orthopedics and spine surgery.
Tell us about what MiRus does.
So we're doing a few different things. I think one thing is we're trying to think about the future of medicine, not just the past or current. One thing is pretty clear, that we have to get to more efficient care pathways. And that was what CardioMEMS did. CardioMEMS essentially made taking care of a big public health problem more efficient. And efficiency has to have better outcomes. Right. You can't just say efficiency. If we apply that to orthopedics, so one thing that has to happen is analytics before the surgery. So we have software that we've developed which looks at the patient prior to the decision to operate. Then in the surgical setting, we have much better implants, much smaller implants. The surgery can be less invasive, just lower the cost of care throughout the cycle of care.
You've had to battle the FDA throughout your career to get things approved. What do you think we can do to improve the process of getting technologies and drugs to the market faster in a more efficient way to help the patient?
I think we've done a disservice to the American public in terms of educating them about the nature of risk. I think most of them are adults. They appreciate that we cannot eliminate risk completely. It's true in their daily lives, every time you get in a car, yet somehow in the life sciences there's an expectation that there will be no risk. Well, that's a fallacy, and it's an expensive fallacy that we're propagating. You know, a big reason healthcare costs so much is that we try to eliminate all risk. People should be able to make an educated choice. Do I want these drugs to cost, you know, $200,000 a year? Or would I tolerate slightly higher risk and a much lower cost and more rapid access? I think that's a conversation that they should be allowed to have. In the analysis, the harm to the patients with severe diseases right now is not actually calculated. And so there are lots of patients who have a severe disease which may be fatal or debilitating, and they've got to wait 10 years. Well, for them, that's never, forever, how you want to think about it, right?
Right.
And I think they should have a right, and the FDA is moving in that direction now, they should have the right to try therapies that are safe, but the efficacy has not been proven yet. The irony is it's American companies that come up with the ideas, American funding, yet they get approved in Europe literally 10 years before the US. So patients who can afford to go to Europe will go to Europe and get those devices and implants, while people here who can't afford to do that are still waiting. That doesn't seem fair to me.
Yadav recently won 2 Spine Technology Awards, which recognize inventors, engineers, surgeons, and companies that produce innovative and practical products for back conditions.